Good morning, and welcome to Drive-In Movies, the podcast where I talk about movies and television shows on my drive to work. Today, I am going to be talking about The Terminator, the 1984 movie, directed by James Cameron, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, and Michael Biehn. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name, but I think it's Bean. So I'm going to call him that, or just call him Mr. Bean because that sounds funny. So Terminator comes out in 1984, and I had not seen it. Like, I did not grow up with it. It was made slightly before I was born. But it wasn't something that I was a fan of. It's not like your Star Wars or your Lord of the Rings, which I'm sure I will do podcasts on those at some point. But I hadn't really grown up with it. I knew people who did, and I know a lot of people, friends of mine that were fans of the series. And so, I figure, all right, let's give it a shot, see what this movie's all about. When I'm watching it, I'm noticing this. This is absolutely an action movie. There is a ton of action, all kinds of action in this movie. There is some downtime in the movie as well, but like just action all the time. It's really, really very enjoyable, and it's nice. It's digestible action, but the action is not there to take place of the story. There is still very much a story. There is a backstory, but I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But it's very, very entertaining. This is the time, by the way, it's 1984. The original Star Wars trilogy has been completed. Return of the Jedi comes out in 1983. And you can really tell, like, it's an action movie that has definitely been affected by the release of Star Wars. While Star Wars is, sort of a grand space opera, epic kind of thing, this is a little bit more real. It's set in the present day. Well, most of it's set in the present day anyway. You can tell that this is something where directors are looking at Star Wars and they're finding what audiences like about it. So, they have these action sequences, but the action sequences are, they're involved by characters whose names we know. We very much know these characters. And so I think that's important because you're more invested in the action when you know who the characters are. So, basic premise of Terminator. Here's how the movie works. It's the year, 2029, I think. It's set, quite far in the future, certainly very far in the future when the movie came out. And, the machines have risen up. And there's a war going on between the machines and the humans. And the leader of the human resistance movement is a man named John Connor. And he's very good, and he leads the humans to victory several times. And so the machines have somehow, it's not really explained, somehow they have access to time travel technology. And so they use that time travel technology to send one of their infiltrating assassin robots, or sorry, cybernetic organisms, known as a Terminator, back to to the past, to their past, our present, to murder John Connor's mother so that he can never be born. Her name is Sarah Connor. And so we see this, and the humans are aware of this, by the way. So the humans are able to somehow get a hold of the Terminator's technology. I think they blow it up after they use it, and they send a man by the name of Kyle Reese to protect John Connor's mother. And so then we see Sarah Connor, who is, a young woman, sort of everyday, normal type person, just going about her daily life, and then all of these sort of strange things happen to her, and she's kind of forced to run away with this Kyle Reese character to avoid the Terminator. You really see, too, like, she does do it quite well. I'll talk about acting a little bit, because I do like to talk about acting. She does do quite well this sort of, oh no, this can't be me, I must be hallucinating, or I must be crazy, which is a trope, and it is used a lot in movies. But I mean, it's useful because it's something we can all relate to as moviegoers. We can relate to, no, this can't be me. I'm not special. I'm not, this important person, as it turns out she is, because it's, very, very scary Terminator is after her. So this is how the movie unfolds. Basically, the entire movie, with the exception of the first, not even 30 minutes of it. Basically, the entire movie is them trying to get away from the Terminator and eventually defeat the Terminator. And that's where all the action comes from, of course. Lots of car chases, lots of some explosions, lots of stuff gets wrecked. It's a good time. So I said I was going to talk about acting. First off, Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, very good. I enjoyed his performance here. I had not seen a lot, surprisingly, I had not seen a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies up to this point. I'd seen more of him as the governor of California than I had of him as an actor. And, he can't do everything, but he can do this. He can do the action. He's got that determined face. He's very determined, and that shows in the character. This Terminator is relentless. There is a reason his most famous line is, "I'll be back." He will be back. He is relentless. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but this, there will be a couple of fake outs where you think he's gone, and he's going to keep coming. He's very tough, he's very relentless, and he's extremely determined. So it's a good combination for a villain in this movie. So Arnold Schwarzenegger, very, very good job acting on this. He doesn't get a whole lot of lines. But he doesn't need it because he's got that determined face, and it's an action movie. Actions are what are important. All right, Linda Hamilton, who plays Sarah Connor, John Connor's mother. We don't see John Connor in this movie. We just see his mother. She does decently well. She does good in the first part of the movie where she still doesn't believe that this is happening to her, that this is even real. Like, machine says in the future, this is ridiculous. She plays that straight very well. But, once she gets into it, she's a little bit more, I don't want to say run-of-the-mill, but, I don't want to say nothing special either, but, not amazing, but she still, does get her job done. And then finally, our third sort of major actor. There's a few side characters, police officers, roommates, friends, all that kind of thing, but they're not as important to the story. Our third character, played by Michael Biehn, is Kyle Reese, the human who was sent back from the future. He's okay. He plays well off Linda Hamilton. That's what I'll say. He's okay, but he just seems like a kid who's in the wrong place. He does get, by the way, the Terminator is a lot of his comedy and a lot of his characterization comes from the fact that he does not know how this human society works, and there's a lot of good stuff that comes out of that. But Kyle Reese, generally speaking, does know what's going on, and so he's a little bit more, he fits into the world a bit better. All right, I want to talk very briefly about story. I'm a big fan of story. I love a good story. Like, I would much rather watch a movie with shoddy acting and a good story than a movie with a really generic story that has no surprises, that was really well acted. I like good acting, don't get me wrong, but good story is where it's at. And this film does have a good story. The story in this film, there is time travel involved, and I know that can scare a lot of people, like, oh, time travel is so confusing, I don't understand it. This is on the easy side to understand. There is one time travel event in the movie at the beginning, and then it never happens again. And it's talked about, but it's not super complicated. There's not a lot of what geeks like to call causality loops. Where if this happens, how could this have ever possibly happened? That's more complicated stuff. You'll get that in episodes of Star Trek and Back to the Future, particularly Back to the Future Part 2 involves a lot of this. There are a lot of time travel movies that are like that. This is not one of them. If you are a little squeamish about time travel, or it's not something you really think you'd enjoy, don't worry. It's not a big part of this movie. It's fun, and it's a plot device. It's not central to the plot. It's not the most important thing. The most important thing is this action where they're trying to get away from the Terminator. That's the big part of this movie. So I like the use of time travel. I also enjoy the action. I will say this. I'll be doing some more movie reviews of more modern movies. If you're listening to this in the far future, by the way, I'm recording this in 2014, so high from the past. I just waved my hand. I don't know why. You can't see me. Uh, um, you know, modern movies, I find a lot of action movies, particularly the biggest offender recently I found was the new Superman movie, Man of Steel, which I'm sure I will do a review of sometime. Just mindless action, just destruction for destruction's sake that does not advance the plot. Here in the Terminator, there is some carnage, but it's on a smaller scale for starters, and it advances the plot. Just destroying things because you can is not something I enjoy in a movie. I do not like it. Whereas this movie is much more, it's pulled back. There's destruction and there's action, but it always serves a greater purpose. These characters are happening. You don't see a bunch of random people getting killed or their houses are getting, blown up for no reason. We're very much focused on the characters, and the movie is better as a result of that. I really think this is something important that movies need to start figuring out, and I'm hoping I can see some more movies like this because it is very entertaining to see that. So the story's good. There are a couple of twists, a couple little takeouts, but generally speaking, it's a very generic action movie. It can be light watching. It can be something you watch if you're interested in getting into the Terminators. I mean, it's a big franchise. 4 movies and a spin-off series, and I believe there's a 5th one coming out in 2015 as well. So anyway, I am at work, so just to wrap up, The Terminator, a very good movie. I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. I do recommend it, and I'm sure I'll do reviews of the other ones at some point. But anyway, I'd like to thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.